Hi, and welcome to Beyond the Breakthrough. I'm Rochelle Roner, your host, and I am so excited to have you here. This channel was created as a space for all of us to celebrate our achievements and successes, gain tips and tools to move beyond the breakthrough, and to be inspired to create change. So let's jump in. Hey guys, welcome back to Beyond the Breakthrough. This is one of our amazing Thrive stories where we're going to hear from another just normal person, just like us, that has overcome some barriers in her life and is here to share about a little bit about her story, her journey, where she was, where she kind of has come to, and share a little bit about her successes as she kind of went through that process of figuring out all the different pieces to life, to business, to personal, all of the things. So I'd like to introduce to you Brittnie Hall. Welcome.
Hi.
So Brittany, before we kind of take off with some of the questions, and I've explained in other videos to people, this is basically just a conversation. I've got some questions to ask to hear about your individual story because really, we all have struggles. We all have obstacles to overcome, and we all have had success. And sometimes it's hard to measure that success when you're feeling like you're at the beginning, or you're feeling like the barriers are right there in your face. But it's so great for people to hear other people's stories and get different perspectives because we're all so different. And my hope is that your story resonates with somebody that really helps them to move forward and push through and see the possibilities on the other side. So before we get started, please introduce yourselves to everybody and tell us a little bit about you, where you are, what you do, anything else you'd like to share.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love what you're doing with this series as well, because you hit the nail on the head. Sometimes it's hard to see when we're in the middle of our journey that we're headed somewhere, and I think it's so important that you're doing this series. So about me, I am a brand new small business owner. I decided in June of this year to take my photography hobby and turn it into a small business. So I have, digital downloads and print shop fulfillment that I do. I'm also the spouse of an active duty service member in the Air Force. So I'm a proud Floridian, but I'm currently living in Oklahoma. And I know you through our mutual friend Haley and the School of Passion, because I'm planning on launching a business in the future as a coach. So I kind of have a lot of stuff up in the air and very much like right in the middle of the process of all of it.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to just dive right into the questions. So tell us a little bit more about a time in your life when you faced significant obstacles or challenges. What was there for you? What can you kind of think about that brings up from your past?
Yeah, so the first thing that pops into my mind has just been my relationship with wellness from the time that I was a kid. I feel like I'm a typical millennial that grew up with the bubblegum flavored amoxicillin because I was just always sick and had sinus infections all the time. And that kind of bled into my 20s. And I just had some times where I was just feeling exhausted. And I described myself as tired and hungry all the time. And it was just, being persistently fatigued and feeling weak in the time of my life that everything was telling me I should be thriving, I should be like vibrant and energetic, and I just wasn't.
Yeah. And knowing that our physical bodies play such a significant role in our mindset. Tell me a little bit about what your mindset was like then during this period, and how did it really affect your ability to move forward with the things that you were trying to thrive with?
I think when you're finding out through like conventional metrics that you're fine and there's nothing wrong with you, you kind of become a bit of a hypochondriac, right? Like you kind of start wondering if there's some nefarious thing that's underlying that's creating all of these problems for you. And in my case, I started becoming a little too hyper fixated on it that, I was still able to show up for my husband and show up for work and all these things, but it was always that little voice in the back of my mind that like something's off. And it really prevented me from wanting to, try anything new. Like I had no sense of needing to be confident in any other area of my life because I just didn't have the energy, literally, and I didn't have the mental capacity to not have this just weighing on me.
Yeah. Was there a specific moment or time or realization when you knew like enough is enough? I need to make a change. Something needs to be different here.
Yeah, yeah. So during one of my husband's deployments, I was out raking leaves in the front yard of our house, and I about passed out just at like the age of 28, raking leaves. I was like on the verge of passing out, and I was like, this is unacceptable. Absolutely not. This is like I should be climbing Mount Everest in my 20s, not passing out raking leaves.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what were some of the things that you did first to kind of overcome this challenge that, again, you didn't have an answer for, you didn't know what it was? Like what were some of the first steps that you took?
Well, I kind of started just focusing more on listening to what other people were talking about. I had friends who were struggling with, medical stuff that wasn't really getting answers in the conventional world as well. And a lot of them had turned to integrative medicine and functional medicine and were having success in those areas. But at the time that they were talking about it, I didn't really realize that it was something that could be effective for me because I wasn't dealing with a lot of the same struggles that they were. But I just realized, like, okay, if all of these conventional markers of like going to an allergist, going to a pulmonary specialist, going to a cardiologist, if all of these different things are coming up like with you're fine, like what's the worst that I can do is, reach for another perspective, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And how did that breakthrough kind of impact other areas of your life, be it personal or professional at this point now?
The first thing that I think came out of like going the functional medicine route was the from the first meeting with the doctor, just hearing that there was a relatability there, that her story that set her on the path to choosing, like having a career change, was very much from that same place of feeling invalidated and not seen and just being told you're fine. There's so many, opinions in the world about like looking at someone and being able to draw a diagnosis from that. And for me, I felt like because I didn't fit any measurements of you look ill or you should be ill, it was just like, you're fine, it's not a big deal. So just the validation that I first got from meeting with her before we even started getting into like diagnostic and testing and stuff like that just took that huge weight off my shoulders of like, I feel seen, I feel validated, I feel like I'm not crazy. I'm not losing my mind.
Yeah. And I have to put this plug in here. I love the fact that she overcame whatever she did to get to the place to be able to help you. Like that's the whole point of this video and this
Yeah.
interview is to do the same thing, is to spread that forward because I think there's such a huge impact when it comes from a personal place, right? When your mission, when you're doing something, whether it be for work or just personal or whatnot, that there's so much more of an impact when you've experienced it in some capacity rather than just going to school for it or just being trained in it. Like having that personal touch is so huge, and you obviously felt that very strongly from her, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
And that's kind of the same tenet that I've come to realize as well is I'm not the kind of person where if I find a little gem out in the world that I hoard it for myself. As soon as I find something that I think is useful, the first thing I feel compelled to do is like turn around and like scream it from the rooftops, like, hey, did you know?
Yeah. 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 I love those self-discoveries. Um, okay, so this is the big question, right? This is the piece where we all get motivated, we all get going, and then what happens, right? There's the setbacks. And this is what tends to stop people from continuing the action that they started taking, right? So, did you have any setbacks or any moments of doubt along the way? And how did you navigate through those?
Yeah, so interestingly, this is going to sound contrary, but in a lot of functional medicine testing, there are certain consistent things that people will see come up, and they're usually like big indicators that sort of correlate your symptoms with, like, yes, this is what's going on. So in the first couple tests that we did, I didn't get like a firm, like, hey, this is exactly what we think is happening. Like there was some speculation and discovery in the conversations of what it could be, so one of the things that we thought I might have was a histamine intolerance, which there's a ton of information about like mast cell activation syndrome and things like that right now. So we were kind of suspicious that I might have been like had a histamine intolerance, meaning my body doesn't produce a certain level of enzymes that help with histamine. Well, it turned out not to be that, and it turned out that there was other stuff going on that we just hadn't identified yet. So I did have a little bit of a like disappointment almost that I didn't have like a straight up diagnosis out of the gate because obviously when something's wrong, we want to be presented with like a clear answer on like here's the solution to your problem. So there was a little bit of disappointment because it is a long-term process, right? Like you're not going to see a functional medicine specialist and immediately have an answer. It's more exploratory and more trial and error, but it's definitely a facilitated process for somebody who's more or less Sherlock's homing, through the process and helping you figure out like what's going on. So there was some disappointment that like I didn't have my solution like week one. But I was able to like trust the process, right? And trust that like this is just one way and one entry point into really starting to get answers.
Yeah. And it sounds like even though you may have just been working with the one doctor, you still had a community there. It was a small community, right? But you weren't going at it alone at this point, and you had found somebody that was willing to work with you the way that you felt needed that. And I think that community piece is so big. It's so important. So that's really great that you had that support from somebody else too, because it is easy to give up on ourselves when we're going at it alone sometimes.
Yeah, and just the mutual respect too. Like anytime we made adjustments, for example, I did an elimination diet for a while as well, and instead of telling me to like drop histamine foods, drop dairy, drop gluten, she was like, "We're humans. Like that's a lot. That's a lot of task and knowledge saturation." And again, her personal experience, like we mentioned before, really made her a compassionate partner in the process to not put expectations on what my capacity was to just like go cold turkey on a nutritional experience that I'd had my whole life.
Yeah. Awesome. So leading into the next question, who else or what else was really supportive to you during this breakthrough, during this kind of transformational time?
I think it was kind of a combination of me seeking out like other people's journeys on social media and just kind of getting the reinforcement and seeing more and more people giving a lot of credit to naturopathic medicine and functional medicine. So that was sort of an affirmative for me that kind of renewed my faith in the process, as well as the ongoing support that I got from my functional medicine doctor. Like we had monthly meetings. I, had notes and stuff that I could refer back to. And then also ultimately, I have a really supportive husband, and he's always been like 10 steps ahead of me in fitness and wellness. And he's, you know, um, intuitive enough to trust that the things that work and resonate for him may not work and resonate for me. So it was kind of a learning experience for both of us because there was a lot about the nutrition side that he wasn't aware of. So he was sort of a willing participant in some of the different lifestyle changes that I had to make, which I'm very grateful for because I think that made just the home experience a lot more manageable.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when it's someone that's living in your house with you, right? That you're around all the time. And it's a lifestyle thing. And you've created this lifestyle together and now there's some adjustments. So having that support, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Um, Looking back, what do you think was the most important factor for you when it came to achieving your breakthrough?
I think honestly, it was getting fed up, really, as negative as that sounds, but just realizing that I wanted more for myself. And then getting to that point of frustration where I didn't need permission from anybody else to want more. It was just kind of like that lightning moment where I was like, I'm worth it to feel better. Like it's worth it for me to feel better. I have so much in life that I want to do. And as much as we can overcome little obstacles along the way, our physiological energy and ability is a huge factor in how we show up in the world. And I just started getting so sad at the fact that I would be missing out on so much if I couldn't figure out, what was going on with me. So, like, really, it sounds negative, but just getting fed up and really stepping forward to be an advocate for myself was like that moment of like, I feel like I can move forward now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes hitting rock bottom or what we think is rock bottom in a certain space can really be motivating. Not that it's a good thing, like you said, to have to get there, but sometimes the circumstances lead you there. So, in thinking about that, if you could offer one piece of advice to someone who's facing an obstacle, similar or otherwise, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing is just to drown out all external noise. Like you know within you what you deserve and what choices you have and just advocating for yourself. I think that's kind of a big message that a lot of people are feeling out in the world, women in particular, in terms of wellness, is just trust yourself, trust your intuition. If something feels off, regardless of what the paperwork is saying, regardless of what the tests are coming back as, if something feels off, you deserve to explore it. Whether it's something that, ultimately becomes what you expect it to be. In my case, like I started thinking it was one thing and came out the other side realizing it was something else, but give yourself that permission to explore and advocate and create space for yourself to get curious because you deserve it. You deserve to thrive. You deserve to do more than just get by and feel okay.
I love that. I love that. How has overcoming this challenge, whenever this was, shaped who you are today?
Yeah, so I started this back in like right when we moved where we are. I started it back in 2000, and it's kind of been an ongoing journey, right? So I started doing the elimination stuff, and I've finally, now that I know what's going on with me, I am now trying to like reintroduce things back in and kind of figuring out like, nope, that's something that we need to keep in moderation and keep out of the regular rotation as far as nutrition goes. But yeah, the biggest thing that it really brought me was just the tiniest little drop of advocating for myself and seeing it pay off. But then in the broader spectrum, like my energy has changed, my body composition has changed, like I'm putting on muscle like I'd never put on before. I'm getting better rest than I've ever gotten before. So it's had from the tiniest implications all the way up to the biggest. Like, I don't think I would have started my photography business or be on the path of starting a coaching business because I wouldn't have had the confidence or the literal energy to even focus cognitively on the tasks that I need to do in order to do those things.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. It really is something to note. And I think a lot of us, before something like this happens, because I had a similar journey to you in a different way, but a similar type of journey, is that you don't realize how integrated all the aspects of your life really are with each other. And, you could maybe, let's say, show up to work and be like, I'm not happy, but can't identify the things that you're not satisfied with in your job. Maybe it doesn't have to do with your job, right? Maybe it is something that's bringing you down. I had that lack of energy too. And so it wasn't that I didn't want to do A, B, and C, but physically just I couldn't. And then it weighs on you mentally. So understanding that component of integration is so huge. And I'm glad that you were able to identify what that piece was and overcome it. I'm so happy for you. So
Yeah, it's
happy
been
for you.
great. And that's why I'm grateful for the platform too, because like I said, it's everybody's going to have a different journey and find different tools that can help them. And I think sometimes just having the permission to get curious about things that are outside the conventional pattern and the conventional way of doing things is what platforms like this can really help people do. Is sometimes we don't know what our options are. And then even if we do, we're kind of scared to go down the path least traveled. But ultimately, it's your path,
Yeah.
you're the only one on it. So if it's going to help you, if you feel like it's going to help you, then just go for it.
Yes, I love that. I love that message so much. So, if anybody is interested in your photography or your soon to be coaching business, or maybe has questions about functional medicine, how can they get in touch with you? How can they find you?
Yeah, so right now I don't have anything going for the coaching business yet. I'm still knee deep in a training program. But for the photography side, you can find me on Instagram. It's Brit Sky, Sky with an E underscore photography. And you can go to britskyphotography.com to find my gallery and all the different. I call myself an escapist photographer. So if you like photography that whisks you away to vacation mode, that's kind of my niche.
Oh, that sounds fun. That's what I need right in front of me here. Maybe we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
We could talk about that. Awesome. And we will put a link to your Instagram and your website in the show notes also, so people can have the direct link there and any other contact information or anything else that you might need to know about Brittnie. But thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for being vulnerable. And I know this is going to inspire somebody. I mean, it has to. It's a very inspiring transformation that you've had, and some, great kind of overcoming of obstacles that maybe other people don't even realize are obstacles. They don't realize that they're there and that there is another side to it. So thank you so much again for sharing. And yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks again for creating this platform. I'm excited to see all the seeds that are planted out there.
Of course, of course. All right, guys, take care.